Hereby, I open this academic ceremony in which Mr. Mohamed will defend his academic thesis, Contribution of Genetic and Environmental Factors to a Prothrombotic Phenotype in Native Saudi Population, with a focus on thrombin generation. I welcome the candidate and his parnimphs. Lots of success. I also welcome, of course, the supervisors, Professor Ten Kate, Dr. De Laat, and Dr. Nini Vaki. I also welcome the members of the opposition, whom you will meet later, and of course, the audience here present and online. But before we start the opposition, I give you the opportunity to tell us something about the material you have studied and what you have presented in your thesis.
Thank you, dear Director, member of Corona, and colleagues. Today I'm going to present you a summary of my thesis that is entitled Contribution of Genetic and Environmental Factors to a Prothrombotic Phenotype in Native Saudi Population with a focusing on thrombin generation. First, I will tell you something about the background related to my thesis. Each person has unique clotting profile that can exist due to the inherited and acquired hemostatic variation, and due to individual variation, clotting factors such as the factor V, to detect variation, and individual several techniques have been developed to measure coagulation directly or indirectly. One of these techniques is the thrombin generation assay that provides to very sensitive to variation between the person. The thrombin generation has a great clinical potential, makes it possible to monitoring patient taking anticoagulant and antiplatelet drug when measured thrombin generation and a BRP, which is in plasma, which the platelets are still present. You can screen for genetic and acquired thrombotic disorder. And the third, you can evaluate someone bleeding risk, for example, in the hemophilia patient, using a bypass agent to replacement therapy who have a no or very low factor VIII level. The principle of the thrombin generation assay is easy. You added fluorogenic substrate to a plasma that after activation you will be formed the thrombin. That thrombin formed will be cleaved the substrate, which will release a fluorogenic signal. This fluorogenic signal is the measure in time and results in the thrombin generation curve as seen on the right. The green thrombin generation curve represents a normal thrombin generation curve. When thrombin generation is increased such as the gray curve, then there is a bigger chance to develop thrombosis. How when thrombin generation is lower, such as the red curve, there is a bigger chance to develop a bleeding. This occurs, for example, when the pro-coagulant factors are lower or anti-thrombocoagulant factors are higher. To detect a normal range, the aim of this study to detect the normal range of the thrombin generation, on the native Saudi population therapy, focusing on the blood group typing. This is the first aim. The studies include 220 healthy male subjects in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, with the average age 30 years. The ABO blood group distribution was followed by 45% group O, 35% group A, 14% group B, and 6% group AB, which is the normal distribution in Saudi Arabia. The thrombin generation was a measure using CAT and PPP and PRP. Here, you can see the results. There are differences between blood group O and non-O for ATP on the peak high. This can be explained by the lower factor VIII level observed in blood group O individual, which is a result in the less thrombin generation. This was observed independently of the medium, so the platelet pool or platelet rich and the triggers used for measurement thrombin generation. So, the conclusion of this first study is that in normal Saudi population, the blood group O has 10 to 15% less thrombin generation than non-O group. The low thrombin generation is unlikely due to the low than normal level as the effect of the similar in the PPP and PRP, but probably due to lower prothrombin conversion due to the factor VIII level. The knowledge of the ABO blood type is clinically helpful to define the individual thrombotic risk profile, as for example, lower thrombin generation is correlate with the higher bleeding risk. So, for your next study, we focused on the use of the oral contraceptive among Saudi women. We wanted to investigate the effect of the ABC resistance on the thrombin generation in relation to the body mass index. We already know that the use of the oral contraceptive induced ABC resistance, so your anticoagulant pathway don't not work efficiently. But we investigated this in relation to the BMI in women from my home country. So, now the background of this study, the effect of oral contraceptive on coagulation has been studied in the past already, on the coagulation has been studied in the past already worldwide. However, never in Saudi on women taking oral contraceptive. For this study, we have include 115 women, of which 47 women taking oral contraceptive and 68 as control. On this table, you can see the characteristic of the participant. As you can see, it's a young population, as are the especially young women that take oral contraceptive. When we look at the BMI, almost half of the oral contraceptive user have a BMI lower than 25, while in the control, it's the minorities, and the 86% has a BMI higher than 25. So this is the difference between the two groups. Although from 28 women, the BMI is unknown in the control group. Here, you can see the results. It's quite interesting. We saw, for example, for the lag time, this is a significantly shorter and also user compared to the control, which means the coagulation system is more pronounced to start forming clot. The ATP is a little bit higher through its significant. The peak is also significantly higher. The same is true for the time to peak. It's also shorter in women taking oral contraceptive, which means that the generation of thrombin is also faster. All this showing that there is a prothrombotic phenotype in women taking oral contraceptive. Here you can see the effect of the addition of thrombomodeling or activated protein C on the thrombin generation parameter. And this woman, the lag time was still shorter, both in the thrombomodeling and activated protein C, while the ETB and peak inhibition is significantly lower, and the women taking oral contraceptive with both the addition of thrombomodeling and the ABC. In this table, we looked at the difference in the thrombin generation in women with a BMI lower and higher than 25 in OC user and control. The ATB in women taking oral contraceptive is significantly higher in women with the BMI than women with the low. So not significantly differences were found in women not taking oral contraceptive on their BMI. So the conclusion of this study is that oral contraceptive use induced prothrombotic change in the blood of Saudi women, include acquired resistance to the inhibitor action of the thrombomodeling and the activated protein C for both ETB and peak value. Interestingly, oral contraceptive usage in our population predominantly influenced the thrombin generation and the ABC and TM sensitively for the ETB and the peak high. Inhibition of individual which a BMI more than 25, so it is especially the combination of the oral contraceptive and the high BMI that induced a high prothrombotic risk. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mohamed, for your clear presentation. We will start now the opposition, and the first opponent is Professor Henskens. She's also the chair of the assessment committee, and she's professor of clinical chemistry, especially hemostasis, in the University of Maastricht. Professor Henskens.
Thank you, Pro-Rector. First, I would like to compliment the candidate and also your team on this work. especially blood typing and thrombin generation is an important subject, I think. And I'm the head of the transfusion lab and the coagulation lab in my hospital, so I really like this combination. So I had to think, what topic will I choose first to discuss with you? And I decided to choose chapter 2 as a first topic. So this is the chapter in which you type participants, 107 participants, from the western part of Saudi Arabia. Okay. And first I would like to ask you a question on these participants. Could you tell me something more about them? And why do you mention that you typed them first with a serological test?
Thank you. Highly estimated opponent, thank you for the nice word and question. The second chapter is talking about the allelic variant genotyping of Saudi population in western region of Saudi Arabia, especially in the area of Jeddah. The purpose, the aim of this study to see the differences between the genotyping between the other population, other ethnicities. We found there is a lot of the genotyping in Saudi, especially in the western region, is different than the others. The study of genotyping extremely is very useful for us, not only for the just note the genotyping for the participant or for the population, but it's also for the disease and also for the forensic medicine, forensic science, also for transplantation, organ transplantation, I mean. There is many purpose for use this study.
Okay. Then I want to ask you still another question, but maybe you can explain it now because of the regions. Because if I go to the other chapter, then I see really other percentages. In chapter 3, you have other participants, I think, 220 healthy male subjects. And I see that the percentages are slightly different. How can you explain that?
You mean the ABO percentages?
Yes, the ABO percentages.
Yeah.
Did you make another selection, or?
Yeah, this is another selection I extremely use. And the chapter 3, I use only male. Some of the participants in the chapter 2, it was some of them, I think, female. And chapter 3, we concentrated to the study on thrombin generation effect. And the second chapter, just we looking for the genotyping.
Yes. Okay, I understand. But then I'm really interested because I'm a blood banking person as well, and I really would like to know why is it important to know these allele types? Because should I also worry about wanting to know that as having a blood bank, or is it important for predicting thrombosis in the future? Because why is it important to have A101 or A102?
Yeah, it's in both. It's protecting first for the other disease, also for the thrombotic, especially BE, phenothrombosis, DVT, and BME. And blood banking, I want to talk something about the blood banking, and that's located, I work in this thesis. There is a center called the Saudi Arabia Center for the, this is a PCSS for social. This is used for the compatibility of the blood type, especially for the gene. This is help for the identify the other diseases, and are looking for also for the compatibility for the organ transplantation, like this.
Okay, and then maybe I will jump for a short question to then our prediction of thrombosis, because what is your opinion on that? If we now look at the risk factors, we never determine the blood type of the patient. I think that there are a lot of patients in our hospital who don't even know their blood type. We only determine it at your first transfusion, or in females to know rhesus D, not the AB0 blood type. So should we have the blood type in our thrombotic passport? Because we don't use it at the moment.
Yeah.
What do you think? Yes or no?
Yes, in my opinion, because especially for the women, and they increase the percentage for the thrombotic and something like that, especially that women use the oral contraceptive and the other problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I advise to use that.
To use that, okay.
Yeah.
Because can I ask a last question, Pro Rector?
Short question, short
question.
answer.
well, my last question was, I forgot now. Okay. What did I want to? I don't know. I give you the word back. I'm sorry. I come back. Yes.
Perhaps we come back to you later. Then thank you, Professor Henskens. Then we go to the following opponent, who was also a member of the assessment committee. That's Professor Zouli. Professor Zouli is Professor of Medicine in the University Hospital of Nancy. He's online, and thank you, Professor Zouli, for coming all the way from Nancy, albeit online, because the University of Maastricht is always very glad to have guests from abroad. The floor is yours.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for your kind invitation. I'm sorry I don't hear the candidate. I think the auditorium is on mute, and I would be very happy to hear and to continue the discussion and to hear you. However, I can't hear you. I hope you hear me. So I will just begin with my questions. Thank you very much for this hard work. I really appreciate this work based on thrombin generation in patients with the high risk of thrombosis, either related to the ABO group or the risk related to OC, oral contraceptive pills. So I don't know if you hear me, but I don't hear you. However, I will ask my questions. The first one is related with ABO group, because I really appreciated your work and the fact that you try to identify the reason why ABO group was related to hypercoagulability. And I would like to ask you a question regarding the world of antiphospholipid syndrome. I know that you are not specialized in this syndrome, but I have a very simple question. Because ABO group is related with the hypercoagulability, with the higher risk identified through thrombin generation, I would like to ask you whether ABO group would be a good item to record in patients with APS in order to identify those with the higher risk of thrombosis to those with a lower risk of thrombosis according to their ABO group. I don't know what you think regarding this very important characteristic in patients with APS. Would you think that it would be useful to record it?
First, highly estimated opponent, thank you for the nice word and question. Exactly, I don't have I'll be answering now on this, but I don't have the exact answer on this question.
Okay. I've seen a paper showing that non-O group were associated with venous thrombosis, and O groups were related to and associated with arterial thrombosis. Did you find any information regarding different kind of thrombosis related to different kind of ABO groups?
Yes, we found that, and O group is the toward to the thrombosis, and the O blood group has the tendency to the for the bleeding. That is the general talk for that. Is if I have the more thrombosis, this is the less bleeding and less bleeding and more thrombosis. If you have the less thrombosis, is more bleeding and and more thrombosis. And generally, we use this method to identify the differences between the from group to the others, and find out the effect of the thrombin generation, and also looking for the coagulation cascade and the behavior of this if we use the a non-blood group, or in thrombosis case, they increase on factor 8 and factor 5. Can you use the inhibitors as well, like the activated protein C. Also, in the case of the factor 5 Leiden patient, you can decrease this phenomena by use it as the anticoagulant. And in case of the O group, we found out the increase when the lower in the Van Warblen factors and the factor 8 as well. So we're looking for this area.
Thank you very much for your great response and great answer. Thank you. If I have 1 minute, I would like to ask you one very interesting question regarding your work on oral contraceptive pills. If I well understood your work, you performed thrombin generation in patients with oral contraceptive, but it was in patients with combined oral contraceptive and not only with progestin only contraceptive pills. I mean that these patients had combined oral contraceptive containing estrogens. Am I right?
Use the oral contraceptive pill, you have the combination between the estrogen and progestin. Sometimes you can use the only progestin as only. The risk for use of this oral contraceptive, especially in case of combination pills, estrogen, it's depends for the dose of the this hormone. If the increased concentration of the estrogen that lead to the definitely to thrombosis, we found out through our study and the paper, the second generation of the oral contraceptive is more dangerous than the third generation, more risk than the second generation. That because the second generation, the third generation has a higher risk for use the as a thrombogenic, as a ETB and ETB, EB, thromboembolism. In some cases, the physician described the only third generation of the oral contraceptives, such as use the progestin. This is maybe it's useful for protective against the thrombosis, and the other side effect of that. Some of them describe this one for the hirsutism and problem in the skin or acne for this patient. But I think the third generation was most of the during my thesis is not recommended to use comparing to the second generation.
Okay, thank you very much. And last very quick question, because in 2 days it will be the World Thrombosis Day, and all the world will try to fight against thrombosis, and especially patient associations. They really want to avoid any thrombosis related to contraceptive pills. And we know that some genetic companies identified, such as pill protect, which is a test trying to identify polymorphism related to the risk of thrombosis under oral contraceptive pills. Do you think that thrombin generation will be helpful and will help identify high-risk women with the risk of thrombosis while treated with oral contraceptive pill? What do you think?
So we have to let this question go in order to give the other opponents a chance to ask questions to the candidate. So we go to the, thank you very much for your position. We come to the following opponent. That's the member of the assessment committee, Professor De Chancho. She's Professor of Clinical Medicine in the Department of Medicine, Cornell Medical College in New York. She's here, and thank you for coming all the way from New York.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation and your hard work over these years. My question was going to be actually similar to Dr. Sully in terms of the different generations of birth control and the effect on thrombin generation. I see that the majority of the women who were taking birth control were on third generation contraceptive. So were you able to differentiate the thrombin generation comparing second type of oral contraceptive or third generation? And what will you say to these women clinically? Will you tell them, okay, you have a higher risk for thrombosis, maybe you should be on a different type of birth control? What will be your recommendation?
Yes, the comparing is depending for the thrombin generation. We found out the increased peak of the endogenous potential curve. This is the ETB. And this in our study. Also, it's depend for the concentration of the progestin used, or different progestin used in these cases. So not exactly.
So you, in your opinion, if you have a woman who has a BMI more than 25, is a blood type non, yeah, or what will be your recommendation?
Maybe they get a higher risk with the women use the with the women other factor like the BMI high or has the high cholesterol or increase for the LDL, something like that. That lead the high risk with the thrombosis. This would use this oral contraceptive.
So would you consider doing thrombin generation prior to, let's say, prescribing birth control in a woman? Will you think that this is a good tool to use before prescribing birth control?
Yeah, sure. If there is no control, you can do anything about that one. Yeah, it's the bend.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Professor De Sancho, for your opposition. Then we go to the following opponent, and that's Dr. Roest, and he's working at the Synapse Research Institute in Maastricht. Dr. Roest.
Thank you, Mr. Pro-Rector. Dear candidate, congratulations with this very nice thesis. I really enjoyed reading it. I like to stay at chapter 4. And when I read chapter 4, the method section, I was very happy because I saw in your method section that you expressed your thrombin generation, especially your ETP and your peak, in absolute units. So ETP in nanomolar minutes and peak in nanomolar. But then, if you move from the methods to the results, and that's on page 70, then suddenly I see in the table that you didn't use absolute units. So you used percentage. And a percentage is a relative unit compared to a reference value. But you don't describe the reference group. So if I look at the ETP and the peak, you present it as percentage, but percentage of what? Do you know that?
Yeah, this is in case you use the antithrombotic like the APC on thrombin generation and look for the ratio, you use the percent.
No, I'm meaning the ETP and the peak, so not the APC. I'll come back to that later.
Yeah.
But the ETP and the peak is a percentage. In table 2, page 70.
Yeah.
Well, what I know, because I heard you did the measurements at Synapse, that you compared with normal pool. Is that correct? So plasma of normal subjects. Did you also use that?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you know where the normal subjects came from? Was it from Saudi Arabia or was it from Maastricht?
I did in Saudi Arabia.
Sorry?
I do it in Saudi Arabia, it's not Maastricht.
Did you do the thrombin generation in Saudi Arabia, the test?
Yes.
So
I do that in my lab, in my own labs, yeah.
Okay. And then is my question, because normal pool is a representative for the whole population. And if I then look at your controls, then you have a 218% peak and 130% ETP. So that's a lot higher than the normals. So your controls were not normals?
No, it's not. We look the bowling sample for the and the control is not the
Okay.
There should be a control. It's not seen the subject.
Could it be that it was specific for the women you studied, that it was higher than normal concentration?
No, specifically high here.
Yeah. So the women you studied, they had a very high ETP and a very high peak if you compare it to normal pool.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I see if you look at the oral contraceptive users, it's even higher because it goes to 242 compared to 218%. So the risk even more increases.
Correct.
If you then go to obesity, or at least BMI higher than 25, then the risk will be even higher.
Yeah.
So it seems if you have a BMI higher than 25, and if you have and you are a woman, and you use oral contraceptives, then you have a very high risk of thrombosis.
Yes.
At least a very high peak. So, do you recommend to? What's your conclusion if you read this?
My conclusion is very easy with the high BMI is more than the 25 kilogram per meter square is lead to the more thrombosis than the other women that's in the control and does not use the oral contraceptive.
And what do you think? Can you prescribe oral contraceptives to women in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah. the women in Saudi Arabia that use the oral contraceptive, they started early. Historically, it's not like the Western region, Western area, or Western country. Also, there is some environmental factors different like the others. The lifestyle is also the difference. They start to use the oral contraceptive early just for the women that's in work and are highly educated. Not all the women that can use the oral contraceptive in Saudi Arabia. Spacing pairs, and they don't want a lot of the kids like before. Also, the recommendation of the use of the oral contraceptive in Saudi Arabia is increased. Don't use the oral contraceptive because it causes for the thrombosis. If you compare between this, the use of useful or utilization of the OC with the other environmental, I think the use of the oral contraceptive is better than none. There is a lot of things I can say, but you can't talking around this.
Okay, but just for medical reasons, you know that you have a very high peak.
Yeah.
If you're a woman, you have used oral contraceptives and you have a high BMI. Do you still recommend them to use oral contraceptives, or do you say, well, this specific group, it's better that they don't use it?
No, I think the specific women that have the high BMI is that highly risk with the use the oral contraceptive.
It's better or not? I'm sorry?
It's not better to use.
Okay. Yeah. But perhaps then I know the solution, because if you go back to chapter 3, then you have a study in male subjects. And if you go to table 1 on page 50, you see that the male people, they have, in each blood group, they have quite normal peak levels. So the same as here in the Netherlands. So that is not 200%, that is around 100%. So they have a much lower risk of, they have a much lower peak and thereby a much lower risk of venous thrombosis. So is it an idea to recommend to use male contraceptives? Because they have very low risk of thrombosis.
I don't think so. But also the men, sometimes you can use hormone, but not hormone contraceptive. You can use the hormone for the athletics or something like that. To build muscles and like.
Yeah, but we try to introduce it in the Netherlands, but we are not as modern as the Saudi, so I thought perhaps this is an opportunity, because it's a lot of thrombosis prevention.
Also, it's referring to the lifestyle,
Okay.
and the diet use and something like that. I don't have the exact answer.
But I cannot convince you.
You have to try to find out the
Okay, so
answers.
it's a pity. I was hoping I could convince you with your own data that this was a good idea, but I like to give back the word to the rector.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Roest, for your position. We now go to the following opponent. That's Emeritus Professor Heemkerk, Professor of Cell Biochemistry of Thrombosis and Hemostasis at the University of Maastricht.
Dear candidate, my congratulations. You have composed a very nice thesis, undoubtedly with support from your supervisory team, who I share in my congratulations as well. So when starting to read, I was very much intrigued about the title, genetic factors, environment factors, and then looking at the process of thrombin generation. Myself, I'm very much interested in how genetic variance affects hemostatic traits. But I was a bit disappointed that in your genetic analysis it's only confined to the ABO gene and not the other genes. On the other hand, I think you make an important discovery there, because also in larger recent studies, also ABO, the ABO genetic variance comes out as a major determinant of the thrombin generation. So with this as a starting point, I would like to discuss your review chapter, chapter 5, figure 3, is on page 94. So if we go to that page 94, figure 3, and then you list a few genetic risk factors. So my question is, which one do you think is the most important of these genes that determine thrombin generation? Is that non-O blood gene, or is that the other genes? Which is the most important genetic variance that contributes to thrombin generation, in your opinion?
As highly estimated opponent, thank you for your nice word and question. If you look at the figure 3, that's in between with the provoking. We're talking about the environment and the genetic discrimination for the unprovoking thrombosis. The gene and environmentalists play a big role, fundamental role for the thrombosis. In case of non-provoking, that factor like age and sex and race, I'm studying that in this chapter. For the genetic, we concentrated to use the antithrombin and the protein C. Here in the Netherlands, you use the factor V Leiden as risk factor for the genetic, which is used the factor V gene.
Yeah.
This is a 1 point mutation for factor V gene. I'm studying just to comparing.
That's a very good answer, because the factor V Leiden is a rare mutation, and the ABO blood trait is more general effects, which are more mild. And then if you now compare then the genetic factors with what you call the non-provoked risk factors, what is more important for the level of thrombin generation? Is that genetics, or is that the age, or is that the sex, or the BMI? Which of those factors is the most important contributor to thrombin generation, in your opinion?
Yeah. In case the we found out there is the non-O group, especially they have the genetic, it's a highly depending for the distribution of the APO group in the western region of Caucasian, but and the others, ethnicity, the ABI group is different from the others. Also, if you look for the which genetic or inherited, genetic or congenital factors on the ABO, especially, we can find out. Not comparing, there is I think, if you compare, I'll look for you mean if you have the anticoagulants use, there is a difference, or there is the priority to use which one, the anticoagulant or the environmental coagulant, to see the effect of the thrombosis risk.
Okay, and then I come to my last question, if I may. So thrombin generation, genetic risk factors, non-provoked risk factors, and thrombin generation. So the bottom line question is, how good is thrombin generation now to predict thrombosis? Or maybe is thrombin generation predicted for bleeding? What is your opinion on that? So if you measure thrombin generation in people, do you have kind of thrombotic risk in your mind, or you have a bleeding risk in your mind?
Now you have to measure for the thrombin generation and decide the effect of this factor on the thrombin generation. comparing with the parameter of the thrombin generation, the time to lag time and the endogenous thrombin potential of the highlight, our increased velocity of the peaks. The thrombin generation in this case is very important to discriminate between the acquired or inherited.
Okay, so I'm happy with the answer. In fact, you're saying that some parameters may be more related to bleeding and others more to thrombosis, which I think is a very good answer.
Yeah.
I give the word back to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Professor Heemkerk, for your opposition. And we come to the following opponent, and that's Dr. Spronk. He's Associate Professor of the Department of Biochemistry in the University of Maastricht. And today he has also accepted the role of Secretary of this committee, for which I'm very grateful. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Pro-Rector. Dear candidate, congratulations with this nice thesis. Also my compliments and congratulations to the promotion team. Could say I have read the thesis with a lot of pleasure, which I normally do, and I did. But I got stuck in the propositions. And I could say I would start with proposition 9, which is from the famous Louis Pasteur claiming that science is without borders and not restricted to any nation. And then I could ask you, why is this study done in native Saudian women, which restricted between borders, but I will maybe come back to that. But I would like to start with proposition 1 and ask one of your paranyms to read out proposition 1.
Yeah. Okay.
The addition of thrombomodulin or activated protein C to thrombin generation gives a good representation of the in vivo inhibitory coagulation system.
Thank you very much. So you basically claim there that if you add thrombomodulin or activated protein C to the plasma, do a thrombin generation, and you cover the physiological anticoagulants inhibitory system. If I then look on figure 1, page 9, nicely simplified overview of the coagulation scheme, I see some gray out dotted arrows with TFPI, antithrombin 3. Is your coagulation system independent of TFPI or antithrombin? Or even independent of antithrombin 1, fibrinogen?
Yeah. Yeah, according for the coagulation cascade, the antithrombin is affected by the factor 5 and 8. So the risk the thrombin should be the coagulation pathway and thrombin didn't of amount of exposure and this antifactor on the cell surface. Yeah.
But if I rephrase my question or took it from the other way, if I would have a patient with a deficiency in antithrombin or a deficiency in TFPI, that would be noticeable in the thrombin generation profile, independent of thrombomodulin or activated protein C, or not?
Yeah, activated, I prefer to use the antithrombin because it's more abundant, distribution of abundance in these cases, and see the effect of the APC resistance for this patient if has the increase or decrease for the brew or anticoagulant.
So in other words, this only refers to the APC resistance and not to the overall physiological anti-thrombin, anticoagulant system.
Yeah, if you're looking for the priority, which the Anticoagulant has the high risk for this one, and that you mean the antithrombin, and if you have a deficiency for the factor C and the factor S, and also the fibrinogen, I think it's the higher risk with the compared to other.
Okay, so did I get that right? Antithrombin is the most important one.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but that's not measured in your system. But I will leave that for if we have time enough. I had a lot of questions on chapter 4, but my colleagues took that away. But that is not a problem. On chapter 2, page 40, you claim that the alpha-2 macroglobulin plays a significant or larger role in the effect that you observe in chapter 2. And chapter 2, page 40, if I remember well. Yeah. There is the, oh, sorry, chapter 3, excuse me. My mistake. Chapter 3, page 40. You claim that the effect of the ABO, the O group, is predominantly determined by the alpha-2M, or that alpha-2M plays a significant role in this effect. The thrombin generation is quite sensitive for levels of alpha-2 macroglobulin, because in the end, if you look at the application, bringing the curve back to 0 depends on how good you can extract the alpha-2M signal from the curve and bring it back to 0. Could it be that thereby the artifact is the alpha-2M in this case, and that the assay is not sensitive for the blood type, but for the alpha-2M?
Yeah, you mean the measurement of the alpha-2 macroglobulin?
And measurement depends on how much alpha-2 macroglobulin is present in the plasma sample, because that's what's extracted or deducted from the thrombin generation curve to bring it back to 0. Otherwise, you don't have a time to tail.
Yeah, there is the special instrumentation from STGO. It's called the STAR STGO determination based on the based on the bind of the I think the chromogenic thing. So. Yeah. Also, we can use the this is for alpha. Also, there is the mathematical is used we use the computational models validation to find out the inhibition of this alpha-2 macroglobulins.
But don't you then agree with me if it's that important, the alpha-2M, that is the predominant marker here and not the blood type? Or is the blood type related to the alpha-2M on a genetic level or somehow expression level? I don't know, basically. I see your colleagues nodding. It is, maybe?
Maybe in case a non-O blood group is abundant of the factor 8, and that leads to the our vulnerability increase the thrombosis case.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. I still have a couple of 1 minute, 2 minutes for a very short question. You state in chapter 4, page 67, that you added for the thrombin generation 1 picomolar of tissue factor. Could you help me, enlighten me, how you know that that is 1 picomolar of tissue factor?
That tissue factor, factor is the trigger for the protein thrombin.
You may finish your answer if you like.
Okay. Tissue factor is a trigger to thrombin generation forming. That's why the first start to do the thrombin generation. If there is no tissue factor, there is no thrombin generation form with the others additional, like the phospholipid and the calcium as well.
Thank you very much for your answers. I give the word back to the prorector.
Thank you, Dr. Spronk, for your opposition. Mr. Candidate, Mr. Mohamed, the time appointed for the defense of your thesis has passed, and the degree committee will now withdraw to discuss the quality of your thesis and the way you defended it. and I request that you and your company await the results of our deliberation and our return in this room, and I suspend the meeting.
Thank you.
The PhD defense has now ended. The degree committee will debate the candidate's performance behind closed doors. This process usually takes about 10 minutes.
Long road to the south side, 7 miles in my rearview mirror. I know what it felt like. My goal's only getting clearer. East side to the west side. No place like home. If there's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and that. On the line, I know you know that I can't read your mind. Years can't fly by now, don't waste all your time. Cause I'll go the extra mile. Long road to the south side, 7 miles in my rearview mirror. I know what it felt like. My goal's only getting clearer. East side to the west side. No place like home. If there's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and that. On the dash, got my laces tied. Long road, I don't waste no time. Break rules because fate decides. With the team and we chase the light. I make a move, fall down, shake it off. I hate to lose, bad branch, break it off. No room for negativity, praise and love. Prepare for deep part cause we're taking off. Hit the mileage, traveling so far from home. Gathering knowledge, other connections. I put the time in to get everything I ever hoped for. It's a challenge and we all in. It's a better future that we go for. And even though these nights seem long, I know that I am never on my own. Know you've won the battle once you've grown. South side, 10 miles in my rearview mirror. I know what it felt like. My goal's only getting clearer. East side to the west side. No place like home. If there's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and that. Long road to the south side, 10 miles in my rearview mirror. I know what it felt like. My goal's only getting clearer. East side to the west side. No place like home. If there's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and that. What's on the line? I know you know that I can't read your mind. Years can't fly by now, don't waste all your time. Cause I'll go the extra mile.
I reopen this academic ceremony, and Mr. Mohamed, the degree committee here present has assessed the quality of your thesis and the way you defended it. In view of its positive verdict and taking into account your previous qualifications, the degree committee has decided to grant you the degree of doctor. And Professor Ten Kate is authorized to confer upon you this academic distinction in accordance with Dutch university custom. And I invite him then to now take the floor.
All right, please.
The English version. Do you promise to work in accordance with the principles of scientific integrity at all times, to be careful and honest, transparent, independent and responsible?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
Good, thank you. By the authority vested in us by law and in conformity with the decision of the committee here present, I hereby confer upon you, Abdulrahman Mohamed, the degree of doctor and grant you all rights attached by custom and law. As evidence of this, I now present you with the degree certificate signed by the rector, the secretary and the other members of the committee and affixed with the official seal of the university.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
For the laudatio, I pass the microphone to Dr. De Laat.
Dear Dr. Abdulrahman Mohamed, finally, what a journey you made. Congratulations with obtaining your PhD. Also on behalf of the complete promotion team, Professor Ten Kate, Dr. Nini Vaji, and of course congratulations to your family, friends in your country. Like we sometimes say in Dutch, de laatste loodjes zijn het zwaarst. It will get tough at the end. I think that was it. Due to the distance and the language barrier, it took some perseverance and determination to finish this process. At the end, you almost did not get a permit for the Netherlands, but here you are. The delay gave us only 3 days to prepare you for this defense and the presentations. And it costed some sweat and tears, but yeah, we are here. And I hope you still like me for pushing you the last 3 days. Not many people know this, but you were a member of Synaps and Karim sooner than myself. In fact, you are our longest PhD track that we did ever, and I'm really glad that you made it at the end. First, you were guided by Raed and Professor Hemkar, and unfortunately Raed left, and then we decided to help you to finish your thesis. And I think since 2015, I've been your supervisor for your studies. And together, especially with Marissa, you were able to finish the studies to complete your thesis, which is now a really nice thesis. During your PhD period, you were always a surprise for me. Your emails were always interested to read, as nobody else has ever called me in emails Your Highness and other things. You were quite funny, and always the emails from you were a joy to read. And we never know when you would be in Maastricht. Usually we get a message 1 day before, tomorrow in Maastricht to finish my studies. So we had to arrange everything, but it worked, and here you are. And yeah, we will always manage to accommodate you properly at the lab and to help you. As a PhD student, you were calm, mellow, friendly man that sometimes had some problems to follow us scientifically due to the language barrier, but I think it was not always easy for you, as you were away from your family. You told me sometimes also your kids were ill with sickle cell disease, and I respect your perseverance, your determination that you are here, that you wanted to finish it. Because we asked also in 2017, do you still want to go on? And you said, yes, definitely, I want to go on. And due to your choice, we are here. So finally, you can relax, because you were really nervous today. I'm not going to bother you anymore with how to present, how to answer difficult questions, like the last few days. You made it. As of today, you're officially a doctor. You made your PhD with all the rights and duties that come to me. So, chapeau, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Laat, for this nice laudation. Dear Dr. Mohamed, also on behalf of the Maastricht University, I congratulate you with the degree you have acquired. And of course, I extend my congratulations to your supervisors, Professor Kate, Dr. Laat, and Dr. Ninivagi. And of course, your family and friends here present and online. I hope you can celebrate it, not only here, but also when you go back to Saudi Arabia. And I wish you a great further career, of course. I would like to thank the members of the opposition for being here and online, and for their work, and of course the technical support team at the PEDEL who made this hybrid academic session possible. I'm always now at the point of closure of this meeting. We ask the audience to leave the room first, except for a photographer. Then we're going to make a picture here with Professor Zuri, and afterwards we will make a picture at the foot of the stairs. And then there's time to congratulate the young doctor. Yeah, having said that, I close this meeting.